thank you all for having me. David, thank you for inviting me. Appreciate it. Does anybody know who I am?
No.
All right. Easy. I usually ask that. You do, yes. I usually get one. So I do a lot of hard money lending in the area. I'm going to go over some of my background just so you kind of understand where I'm coming from. I wasn't hired out of college to come out sit behind a desk and crunch some numbers. I was actually an investor first. And I've been in this since 2008, so I got to sit through the crash. So my background is actually I came into the market during the crash, and I actually took up what's called wholesaling. Anybody here do investment properties? Anybody involved in? You guys know what wholesaling is? You familiar with that term? So I came out of school, I read a book, I had no money, and I decided that I was going to wholesale properties. And at that time, my partner and I had I met a guy. I was actually in New Jersey, and I outgrew Burlington City's area for wholesaling properties, and I went into Philly, and we built a company called We Sell Homes to Fix, and we buy homes to fix. One side was the buyer side, one side was the seller side. Wholesaling, really, for those who don't know, it's really just you're a realtor without a license. That's what it is. So, and it's legal, it's fine. What you're doing actually is assigning the rights to a contract. So I go out and find a property, put it under contract, and then I assign it to somebody else for the difference of price. So maybe you want to buy it for 30 grand, you like it if you want to sell it to me at 30, you want to buy it at 40, there's 10,000 in between, there's an assignment fee, it's called. So that's what I was doing. So what we would do is we'd take those to the table, and I actually learned during the time when the world was ending, all the big players in the market came out because all the cash buyers were there. That was it, right? There was no bank financing at that time. It was just cash buyers. So all the big players come out of the woodworks and they say, this is what we're paying. And they swooped up to everything. And those are the people you look around now and you're like, oh my gosh, you bought properties in this area for how much money? And you're like, you're worth this much money? That's because those are the guys that came out in 2008 and 2009 and just bought everything. So I was selling to those guys. I was, and I have my license. I have a license. I carry a license. I'm actually, I guess I technically hang it with Keller Williams Center City. But I don't use that. I don't sell any real estate at this point. So, but I had used it because I had Trend MLS, and that was really the reason I needed it. That's how I underwrite. That's how I look at the value of the deal. So back then I was learning, didn't realize what it would come back to today to make me able to be able to do what I do today, is being underwriting. So I was wholesaling deals, and I was learning what an investment property was truly worth from the best players in the game, because those are the guys that are saying, I'm paying this much or take a walk. And I was like, okay, you're paying that much, and so if you're going to pay that much, I have to get it at this price. I have to get it at a bigger spread. So my partner and I were building a business. I think we were doing a couple hundred transactions, somewhere between like 150, 200 transactions a year. The bigger wholesalers in the game now, you guys familiar with any of the wholesalers around here or anything like that? Yeah? Who?
Clay, choose Witness Place.
Okay. Local here or in Philly? Or where?
In Philly.
In Philly, okay. So, now back then we would make maybe like 5 to 7 grand a deal, which was fine. It was good money. These guys now are making 20 to 50 grand and doing the same amount of volume. It's crazy how much wholesalers are making right now because we're at the top of the market, and that's the reality of the situation. So what had happened then was my partner and I, as you guys are realtors, you know that we're in go time, right? You have all your closings right now. It's May, June. This is when everything sells, and all of a sudden August shows up, and you're like, I need a closing. Where'd all my money go, right? So. Same thing in wholesaling. It's got a cycle to it, and we were spending a lot of money on marketing at the time, and we said, hey, let's build up let's stabilize this by building a property management company. So it's probably like 2009, maybe 2 years later, to stabilize the monthly revenue. We built Atlas Property Management, myself and my partner, and we grew that to maybe like 600 or 700 units. And then we sold it to TCS Management in Center City, which is how I'm affiliated with Keller Williams Center City, is because one of the partners there he runs a brokerage for Keller Williams Center City. So what does that have to do with what I do today? So I'm explaining to you, I'm just telling you this because my background is I'm not a banker. I'm hard money bankers. I'm an owner at the company. But I understand an investment property when I see it. We're probably also the most pure hard money in the area. If you ask around about us, when you come to us with a deal, because I'm in the investment world, that's what I do. I don't really do anything in the retail world. I do care what you guys are going to sell the properties for. I always put my investors in touch with good realtors because I know I want those properties off my books. It's important for me to get a top number, but the reality is where you guys are going to use me, or you're going to understand how to use me, or your investors will use me, is going to be from day one when that house has no roof, no floor, nobody wants to touch it, but you're going to be. Anybody here work with like investors that do like? You get both sides of the deal, right? You get it on when it looks like garbage and then you get it on the resale, right? You're double popping. That's great. That's a good way to work. I know a lot of realtors that are like, oh, I don't want to do any investment properties. I'm like, you're missing out, because if the money's not on the first side, it's on the second side on the flip, and you're making twice your money. So there's a lot of value to that in terms of what that is, but where you're going to use me is on the initial first side. So the way hard money works, it's truly private money. Private money this is not a bank, so don't approach me like a bank. I don't care what your FICO score is. I don't care what your W-2s, tax returns. None of that really matters to me. And if you go to a hard money lender and they say they want to see that, they're not a real hard money lender. You're actually just being underwritten by a bank. So I will check your credit score, though, to make sure you're not lying to me. But I've done deals with people in the 500s and 800s. I stand by the deal. So that my job all the way back from 2008 learning the wholesale was understanding what a deal looks like and if it's going to be profitable and I'm in the right position. My job is to position the money correctly on our side, and that's what I have to do. So I have to look at the asset to determine if it's going to be something that's going to make sense. Now, it literally takes me under 30 minutes for any deal. Like any deal to look at and say, this is what it's worth and this is what we're going to go with, and I can give you a number that day. So when you approach a hard money lender, typically what you're doing is it's a property that a bank is not going to finance, right? A bank isn't going to, you guys, when was the last bank you dealt with that was going to finance a house? I mean, they're out there, I guess, but usually you have a home inspection, appraisal, all that kind of stuff, and then the bank gives you money, right? With us, I don't do appraisals, home inspections, I don't even know any home inspectors, right? So that's just not how we work. So I want to see the house when it's in the condition of terrible. Then I want to know how much money you want to put into renovations. If I have those two numbers plus the address, I can tell you exactly how much we're going to lend on that. That's how we do it. And most of my day right now is spent, I probably get about 30 leads a day, saying no to 29 of them every day. It's a lot of no's because a lot of people don't have real deals in front of them. But when you do have the right deals, you go. So when you're going for hard money, where you're going to use me is your investors are going to say, I need money. And all investors, I don't care what they say, I don't care how rich they say they are, they will tap out. If you have high net worth investors that are flipping 10 deals, they're going to take that money and roll that into 20 deals and 30 deals a year. At some point, they have all of their money on the street. I've never met even the richest of the richest investors will eventually extend themselves to a point where they got to bring some of that capital back inbound. And they typically either call me for their next purchase or they tap into the cash out on the current properties they own. They either do one or the other because they need the liquidity quickly to move on more deals. Good investors won't leave deals on the table, right? Well, they would rather spend a couple extra bucks on the cost of hard money than leave 50 grand on the table on a flip. So where you'd be calling us or your investors could use us would be in the event that you have a deal, you want to close it, you need to close it fast. I typically can close, if I have to, I can close in 24 hours, meaning if title's in, I'll close it tomorrow. Hopefully you don't ask me to close in 24 hours, but I've done it, certainly. Most deals are just as soon as title comes in, within a week, 2 weeks, something like that. There's no red tape involved. I can walk you through a quick transaction as to how like hard money would work. So maybe David comes to me and says, Ian, I have a deal. I'm going to buy XYZ Main Street for $100,000. All right. Now, what I'm looking at as a hard money lender is the after repair value, right? Because we don't really care what it's worth today. We care what it's going to be worth tomorrow after you're done renovating it. So in order to get it from $100,000 XYZ Main Street to $300,000, we have to put a certain amount of renovation in it. Well, how are we going to do that? Well, let's say it's, I don't know, we're in the suburbs here. So most of your 2,000 square foot, 2,500 square foot houses are going to be about $60,000 in renovations, call it. So at $100,000 pickup, $60,000 in renovations, you're reselling for $300,000. You're not actually making $140,000 because you have closing costs, you have transfer tax, all that fun stuff. It could be a $100,000 profit on something like that. That's possible. You're probably going to go over budget a little bit, probably more like an $85,000 profit. So I'm going to start with that $300,000 number, and I'm going to know really quickly if you have it at the right number. And typically 30% of the resale value is a good pickup price. Just if anybody wants to know, like that's when people are like, how much should I buy this for? 30%, so the as-is value should be about 30% of the resale. That's a very common number that I see that has like enough room in the deal to make real money. So like you can't go out and buy a house, doesn't exist. Maybe it exists, but probably not. Where you buy a house for like, that same scenario, if you try to go out and buy a house for like $220,000, $230,000 and tell me you're gonna put $10,000 into it and you're gonna resell it for $300,000, the answer is no, you're not. It's just, you're not. I'm telling you, you lose money. You can't put that front door on the house for $10,000, let alone. So you have to be realistic with your renovation costs. And at that point, once you understand how much your renovation costs are and you buy it at enough of a discount, you can put yourself in a position to make some real money, but you're usually going to be about 30% of the ARV. We call it ARV, after repair value. That's what I analyze. So using the ARV at $300,000 in this scenario, I'm typically going to be about 65% of the ARV for construction and acquisition. So what does that mean? It means $300,000, 65% of that's $195,000, okay? That would be my max loan of that number. Well, max loan includes, I'm also supplying you with construction costs to do the deal. So I do a $195,000 loan with a $60,000 escrow for construction, meaning that I'm going to disperse to you as the project goes on that $60,000 to renovate it. So my maximum loan is $195,000. Now you're going to go, whoa, if I'm in at 100 plus 60 and you're going to do 195, does that mean you're going to give me $35,000 at the table? No. I want to see that you have some liquidity. If I'm not checking your W-2s, your tax returns, the only thing that you're going to offset my risk with is having some cash in your pocket. That's the reality of the situation. So a deal like that, even if we're under that 65% threshold, I'm still going to want to see some money at the table. We want to see some skin in the game to make sure that you can get yourself in and out of a position. You've done some things to save up a little bit of money. No money down deals don't exist. The only time they exist, and if anybody tells you there's brokers out there telling you they exist, they're just stringing you along. The only time they do exist are under two capacities. One is called a JV, which is sometimes we do that. We put up all the money on the deal, but this is not usually until I've done several deals with somebody, developed a relationship, know how their business operates, have a comfort level with them. Sometimes we'll partner on the deal with them. The other option is if you have, sometimes investors will come to me and they have like 3 or 4 free and clear properties, like meaning no encumbrances on the properties. And maybe they pay $100,000 each for these properties, but that's just cash. To me, that's just cash. That's the same thing as cash. So I might say, hey, you need, I'll give you $200,000 for this deal. We'll hold $50,000 in reno. You need to bring $40,000 to the table. And they're going to go, man, I got no money, but I have 3 properties free and clear. You want to take a look at these? I'll look at them and go, well, sure, these work. So what I'll do is I'll place a first lien position against one of the other free and clear properties, and they'll come to the table with no money. That's possible as well. So no money down doesn't exist unless it's under one of those capacities with any company out there. You'll spin your head trying to find it. The other function is with true hard money, we want to see some skin in the game. You can't get into this with like $5,000 in your bank account. It just won't happen. Now, I do know some people, what they do is they form partnerships, which is also advantageous potentially to your investors, where they're like, I don't really have much money, but I have an eye for deals. And some of them do. Some people do. Some people really have an eye for deals. I've met plenty of them. Just like, I don't know how you keep stumbling on these deals, but you've got a knack for it. So they have a knack for stumbling on deals. They form a partnership with somebody that has like a little bit more liquidity in their bank account. Maybe they've got 50 or 100 grand on the sidelines. They want to be involved in real estate investing. They form an LLC or an operating agreement, and then we'll lend to the LLC. And there's 2 partners that then their operating agreement decides how they cut up the funds at the end of the deal. Now, I know I talk fast, and that was probably a lot of information in a very short period of time. So if anybody has questions or wants me to back up on something, ask me. Anything that was, I saw somebody's taking notes, so if anybody kept up with my mouth on those notes, that was pretty good. Anybody have questions about hard money lending in general? Yeah.
Well, what would be like the minimum amount of money that you would have to come to the table with? Like you said, 40 grand, but like, what's the lowest amount you've ever done a deal with somebody where they put cash out of their pocket?
So for me, 16,000. Actually, I could tell you exactly how much because I looked back on that. I was like, I don't think I'd do that again. So I usually see like 15 to 20% would be like kind of the range that you get into, and well, so a good way to look at that too is if you're coming to the table with significantly more than 50, like say 20% in one of my deals. I'm not going to tell you what I think the deal's worth because I don't feel like getting into a back and forth. I just know how to analyze a deal. But what I'm saying to you, and a lot of people get mad at me for this, I don't know why. Actually, I had a guy, my very first bad Google review ever, and I was like, seriously, man? And I was like, your deal is not worth this. I'm saving you money. And he wrote a comment about me being arrogant. I was like, maybe I was, I don't know. But I was like, when I tell you that you're bringing significantly more than that 20% to the table, I see something in the deal that you may not see. And remember, I sit here all day and look at 30 deals a day. And I'd love to deploy all that capital, but like, if you're not looking at 30 deals a day, use me as a resource more than I'm not fighting you. I'd love to give you the money, but if you don't have a good deal, I really, take the numbers that I'm putting in front of you. You go, hey, I'm bringing 50% cash to close, and you're going to be like, that's like 30% LTV. I'm like, that's your LTV. My LTV is way different. So then my good investors and my repeat investors will send me probably like 5, maybe 10 deals before we do one. And they know when I send them back, when it's a lot more than say 20% cash to close, that I'm saying to them, I see something here. And I'm not always right. I'm not saying I'm always right, but I can't be wrong. So I can't afford to be on the wrong side of a deal. So if I'm on the right side of a deal and you're seeing about 20%, it means you probably have a profitable deal in front of you. And contrary to popular belief, we've probably done north of 2,000 loans at this point inside of our company, and we have significantly less than 1% foreclosure rate. So most of our investors are actually very profitable, and I like to think it has something to do with me. Myself, I underwrite up here, my partner underwrites in Maryland. Has something to do with us saying no to a lot of people. When the investors get that relationship and understand that, I'd rather you not do this deal and make money on the next one, even if it takes 5 or 10 of these deals for me to look at for you, because that deal that you do, you're going to make money and then you're going to use this again. But you take that one deal that goes sideways, you're out, you're done. Like, I'll see you in 5 years when the cycle turns back over. Like, that's just what's going to happen. So to answer, that was a long-winded answer to your question. 20% maybe would be about like $100,000 deal, 20 grand, pretty common at the table. And there's a feel to that too. You know, I have some. So when okay, I'll talk to you about approaching a hard money. If you don't approach me, that's fine. But when you approach a hard money lender, our job is to like smell the conversation on the phone and who I'm talking to, right? Because I don't do as much due diligence as a bank, so I've got to see through really quickly who I'm dealing with. And if you have enough conversations, you kind of know what you're stepping into in every conversation. And like, everybody is some version of somebody else. Every investor is some version of another investor. You have the investor that has everything buttoned up tight. I go, hey, I need this. Bang, it's over in my email in 2 minutes. Hey, what do you think of this? They don't tell me a story. They don't, you know, the best ones are when people give me a whole story about the property. And I'm like, man, I've had this conversation like 40 times this week. I was like, I know the house needed this and you're getting back into the game and 2008 was tough and I'm like, I got it. Like, I've had this conversation 100 times. So understand the conversation you're probably having with the hard money lender you're dealing with. They've had this 100 times. You're not going to pull the wool over their eyes if they're the underwriter. So we look for direct answers. So the more direct you are with me, the more direct I'll be with you, and we can just get to doing business. So there's no story, there's no selling the deal. Like, that's very important when you're approaching a hard money lender. So the things I want to know when you call are going to be, hey, what's the address, construction numbers, and acquisition price? That's it. That's all I want to know. We might chat. Like, I can tell right away when I'm talking to a professional investor, when I'm talking to somebody that's brand new, and I don't care. I'll work with somebody that's brand new. But at the same time, I can tell when somebody's polished, when they're organized, or when you say something to somebody and 6 days later they say they haven't checked their email, forgot to get that back to you. And I'm like, you're asking me for $200,000 and you haven't checked your email in 6 days. I do not feel comfortable with the situation, right? So those little things add up. And the way I offset them, you're asking about cash to close. I'll still do the deal, but you don't know what's happening is I'm dropping my amount of money that I'm going to lend you. So if all these things are coming together, I'm just smelling like this could get ugly. Because if you can't get to your email in 6 days and you can't get me that in 12 days and you forgot that and you forgot that, what's going to happen on your job site when you're swinging that hammer? Do I think you're taking care of your contractors? They're taking advantage of the whole situation. You're going to go twice budget, right? And I know this in the back of my head. So I don't want to clean it up, and I don't want to be dealt with cleaning it up. And if I have to clean it up, I want to have a nice margin to clean it up. So a polished investor that comes to you and they're organized and they have their numbers and they know the renovations, they can give you a scope of work and go, this is how much it's going to cost. That's the investor that I feel I'm going to push my numbers with. I'm going to get the most aggressive with and give them as much money as I can. If you're not that, what's happening is on the phone, I'm going, okay, that $200,000 loan I'm going to do just went to 190, 180, 170, 160. And by the time they ask me for a number, we're at 150 and they're like, I don't understand. My answer was, I wasn't going to let this fall apart I wasn't going to be left holding the bag. But I could tell just by the conversation we're having that this is the kind of investor you are. So when you're approaching a hard money lender, even though they may not be saying much on the phone, they're listening. They're the true hard money lenders, the underwriters. So if you're not speaking with an underwriter, you're speaking with a broker. A broker is, it's fine. I have some fantastic brokers that I work with. They'll sell you and say, oh, I'll get the money for you. The real hard money lenders, the true ones, will be able to they're going to listen and probably cut you off if you keep talking too much. So they want a business relationship and they expect that because you're asking for money. So whether you're new or extremely experienced, that's what you want to do. That's the delivery you want to get. It's just a polished business presence because there's a lot more confidence in the number they're going to put out in front of you. That's a complete tangent. So anybody else got anything?
I'm sure everybody wants to know what the terms are, which I know.
Sure, you're gonna see rates from 12 to 16%. 1 year note is what we do. Most companies do about a 1 year note. You're gonna see anywhere from like 6 months to 1 year. What does that mean? That means the money you're paying. So if you take a $100,000 note, so let's say we're at 12%, you're gonna be paying 1 point a month on that money. So every month that's out, it's 1 point. So $100,000 loan, it's $1,000 a month is what's going to cost you. Interest-only payments. There's nothing that goes towards principal. Now, short-term capital doesn't matter. Like if you're fast, the key is your speed or your investor speed. It's not well, it is a little bit the lender too. But if you're in and out of a 12-month note in 6 months, you paid 6% on that money, right? That was your interest payment. If you're in and out of that in 12 months, you just paid 12%. So like how fast you move and your efficiency in getting a property resold is a lot more impacting than the actual lender. Now where the lender can come in, which is why you don't get too wrapped up on rates. You want to know that the lender you're dealing with is going to give you fast service. But what do I mean by that? The construction draw portion of the project is important because when you submit for a construction draw, we're pretty easy going about it. So you'll send me a scope of work saying this is what works for my cash flow. I'll say great, especially in the beginning. I want to make sure you guys are getting the money that you have to keep moving. But like our inspectors are usually out within 72 hours, and let's say you need $10,000, you just finished the bathrooms. Great, looks good. I'll sign off on it, and within 72 hours, I'll wire out to you. Other hard money companies, what you can run into is like they have a process. They send out a third-party inspector that may or may not be associated with their company, and they say, you know, hey, you're like, I did bathrooms, this, and this, and they go, oh, wait a minute, like you said you were going to install these light sockets. Sorry, resubmit again in 2 weeks, and you're like $10,000, and you're holding $10,000 for light sockets. That's crazy. Well, the problem with that is that if you're paying a point a month, right, and you just lost another month, you might as well just pay, instead of paying 12%, now you're paying 13%. It was the same thing. You just lost an entire month of interest. So the speed that your hard money lenders process in the back end works for you, with you, is also very important. So 12 to 16% to answer your question. You're going to see rates anywhere. If you're extremely high volume flipper, you might get into like the 2-point range-ish. You're going to hear some 1-point numbers out there, but you're going to see anywhere from like 1 to 8 points is what I hear. And I'm not going to give you my exact rates, but we're fall somewhere in between those two numbers. Points mean percent, and you pay that at closing. Yeah.
And then I guess one question, I think, how do you do like the construction costs? Do you need a contractor to go out, or do you send somebody out, or?
I just,
So I know you asked me like for mine. Like,
yeah, I don't, honestly, I just know what I'm waiting for back, right? So like, there's only so much fluctuation to the numbers for most deals for me. So like, if you're going to send a contractor, you're going to have a good number on it, right? But like, let's say like, again, we'll go back to that house in the suburbs, 2,500 square feet, 4-bed, 2-bath. It's a $60,000 reno. If you come in at 70, fine. You probably have a guy, maybe he's a little more expensive. You come in at 50, fine. You might be able to, get it done for that number. You might not, but I'm like $10,000, you'll find the money if you screw it up. You come in at 15, I know we're off. So like, I don't really go that hard on it until I see, most people come in less. Most people think they're going to put together the Taj Mahal for 10 grand. It's just what happens. So my recommendation is that, have a contractor look at it. And when you send the numbers, I'm not going to bust your chops over like that $10,000 swing in either direction. It's when you're way off. And then once I see the numbers, I know. And if it's not, that's also a big red flag. If you come in to a hard money lender and you go, I can do this for 15, instantly they're dropping their number because they go, whoa, you don't know what you're doing. And you don't have to be an experienced investor, because I've had new investors that know very well their numbers very well because they have a very detailed scope of exactly how much it's going to cost, and I'm totally comfortable with pushing my numbers on something like that. So to answer your question, you would you would have your own numbers, you'd send them over, I'd look at them and go, yeah, hey, it makes sense. Where it gets a little tricky sometimes is when you have, like, I think it was actually around Harleysville, maybe, there was like a 10,000 square foot house. I mean, there was like horse stables and all this, and you're just like, what is this thing worth? And how much does it cost, right? It was a $250,000, $300,000 renovation, and I'm like, the bathroom's 50 grand, right? Or it's crazy. So I gotta be careful on those when they're really outside the box from like a typical flip. But like 90% of the deals we do are just like 3 1s inside of Philly, 4 2s in the suburbs. Pretty standard numbers for the most part. So, did I answer that?
Yep.
Cool. Well, something else exciting. The most boring topic. Well, no, property management, my other company. That was the most boring topic. That I can bore the hell out of you with that.
I have one more question.
Yeah.
Everybody else has a lot of ones.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
So, for the interest, like obviously I've been using that. If I use somebody else, like, is the interest like at the end? Is that tax deductible? Do I get 1099, or is that something completely separate?
I believe we sent 1099s to all of our investors.
My other guy didn't, so he was confused when I asked him that. So
I think we do. We have an accountant in the back end that does all that. So, I mean, it's interest-only payment, so it has to be tax deductible.
yeah, he didn't. Like I said, I never got anything from him when I did it. But
Yeah, it would have to be tax deductible because it's true. It's just interest, yeah, on an investment property. So, but yeah, I know we send them out every year. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Do you have a fee for looking at any of the deals?
Nah, I don't do that. Nah. Yeah, if somebody asks you for a fee, be careful. Yeah, for sure. Because that's either. So the other question you may want to ask if you're looking around, and you know, so you want to say, are you a direct lender or a broker? There's nothing wrong with brokers, but the direct lender, if they say yes, I'm a direct lender, you are the source of money. So I am the source of money versus a broker is I'm brokering, I'm finding you the source of money. There's some very good brokers out there, but typically your brokers will charge you a fee. And there are some direct lenders that charge a fee, but you're gonna get so mad when they charge you $2,000 to look at a deal and they go, hey, I don't want to do the deal. You're like, seriously? I just give you $2,000. That like, don't even get into it. It's not worth it. You can find that money without even paying that. Yeah.
I'm feeling particularly stupid.
No, don't worry.
So allow me. In the market we're in right now, properties are flying off it. And let's assume that the properties that you might be in line to lend toward would be, you know, these typical, you know, or city or suburban properties, you know, let's say they're 100 something and they've got a 250 plus back end sale opportunity. As a buyer, or if I'm in with a contractor partner that we would ultimately want to flip this, we got very little time to get the written scope of the renovation to somebody like you, to have you have time to look at, examine, decide it's worth it, it's not, because on a presumption that, say, I and my contractor partner wouldn't have the wherewithal to fund it ourselves.
So so you're saying, I mean, so like I said, I can close in 24 hours. And you're like, how does that happen if the guy has to get an estimate? So my answer would be come in with a roundabout right number. Like if you don't know your numbers well enough to not even have a roundabout number, I'd say you need to spend the time to do your due diligence before you approach a hard money lender. But your contractor should know, right? If your buddy's a contractor, he's going to know what is this top to bottom. I could tell you this morning what that costs within $10,000. They'll know if they're really that good. And then as long as I see that number in a round figure, we're good. I'll commit to it. But then once we've committed to it, I'm going to send you my numbers, and then I'm going to say, now send over the scope of work. It might be, you know, hey, it's not closing for 2 weeks, but I have to get under contract this morning. Can I get a pre-approval letter? Sure, I'll send you a pre-approval letter for it. Again, that comes back to that 4-2 flip, like the 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom flip. And I know it's going to be between like 50 and 70 year end. If your guy says, hey, it's 55,000, great, that's fine. I'm not going to give you a hard time about it. We got to get this thing under contract. If your guy comes in and goes, I'm going to do it for 20, I'm going to say, no way. So like, as long as your guy is competent, you know, your buddy is competent with it, we'll be fine. I'm not looking for an exact number until after, you know, we put it under contract. You might say, hey, it was 53,250 or something, whatever that number is. And then you can send me the full scope. But I'm looking for a sign of competency on the contracting end is really what I'm searching for. So, yeah. And the pre-approvals, we do those all the time. I get it. Like, you're like, you know, sometimes those one properties come up. I've had sometimes, and I don't tell other investors, like, you know, you wouldn't know if you were working with me. So what I'll have happen is somebody will send me like, if the property's hot enough, I'll have 3 or 4 investors send me requests for pre-approval. And I'm like, so I know I'm sending this broker from 4 different clients, 4 different pre-approvals, but that's what it is. Like if I like the deal, and my other investors don't know, I don't ever breach that confidence because it's not anybody else's business. But I get it. Like when you have a property that's that hot, it could go off the market in, you know, half a day, easy. So, but you know, Melissa, as long as you give me those 2 numbers, how much am I trying to, what's my maximum amount that I'm going to pay for this? And how much do I expect in renovations?
Okay.
Somebody else was raising their hand when I was, no? Cool.
And then for the distribution of the construction costs, is it just one or?
I do as many as you want.
Okay.
Yeah. I always try to, like, contrary to popular belief, I don't want your house. People are like, oh, you're a hard money lender. You want to get my house at 65%. I'm like, no. I'm like, there's legal fees. You're going to hold it for a year. I'm like, whatever makes it smoother for you guys, I'm trying to do. So if you're like, hey, this is how my contractors work. I try to get $5,000 a week. This is how I want to break up the scope of work. Cool. I'm in. I'm good. I'm not trying to push that around in any way. The faster that hammer swings, the faster you're out of the deal. That's how I look at it. The faster you get in one of your realtor hands, and the faster they sell it. So, and off my books. So
are you only, so it's more like a construction loan. So if I only took 20 from you, and I only pay me interest on 20?
No, negative. You're paying on the whole loan.
I'm paying on the whole loan, but I'm only drawing off that. Would you do it the other way?
I can do just a construction loan if you want to buy it outright. Like if you buy the house cash, I can do, like if you, like I have people that'll be like, hey, I just bought this for like 80, I need like 120 to rent out.
Right.
I'll do a $120,000 loan. And the way like I'm thinking of that is, okay, you just put cash 80 into it. So to me, it's the same thing as like coming to the table, right? So I'll just do the a loan for 120 or something. So I can do just acquisition, just construction, or I can also do cash out, right? So you might have just bought a house, renovated 300 grand. Hey, actually I was just talking to somebody outside and they said, I got a guy who's trying to buy a house for 250. He's got 3 properties free and clear. 2 of them are about to sell as a flip. Can we start pulling some money out of these to leverage them? Sure. If they're free and clear, I treat them like cash. Like I think of them like cash. Yeah.
Do we have your information?
Yeah. I got. I'll be up here. So if anybody has any questions, let me know. I'll leave my cards right here. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions. Thank you very much for having me.